the Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and well, today is 11/22/19. So, dollar. We've seen a lot of gyrations recently on the foreign exchange market, yet the dollar keeps going up. The euro is in the tank, and China's currency is not doing too great either. What is going on here? What's happening? Well, got Mike from RTD, that's rethinkingthedollar.com, just appeared on his show recently, and he's got some things I think you should listen to. First, if you got a question for Mike or myself, tell us where you think the dollar is heading. What's your opinion about it? Is it going to retain its world reserve currency status, or is it going to just join all the other reserve currencies in the dustbin of history? Just email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Well, Mike, it's great to have you on the show. Your first time guest. Really appreciate it. So you've been doing rethinkingthedollar.com for a while. How'd you get into this?
Oh, Kerry, I want to thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate the opportunity. And so just a little quick synopsis of how I arrived at this point of rethinking the dollar. It started from my younger years, or earlier years rather, having had a chance to play professional sports around the world for the most part. And during that time frame, I got a chance to be exposed to a variety of currencies, being paid in different currencies and having to learn the exchange rates and things of that nature. So from just watching the fluctuations in the purchasing power of those currencies, as my career came to an end, came back home and started realizing that the dollar is not much different than any other currency except for having a world reserve status at this current moment. And so it's got me to rethinking a lot of things and trying to educate and better understand how the currency operate in general. Nevertheless, what we use it for and how we value money or whatnot. So that's kind of a little bit of a short story as to how I got into rethinking the dollar.
And how long you been doing it now?
Well, now I'm reaching, I think, my 6th year of running the website as well as a YouTube channel, and having a great opportunity to connect with gentlemen such as yourself and doing interviews or whatnot and some live streams. So about going on 6 years now.
So this has kind of become your life's work, eh?
Yes, and it seems like it has, because one of them subjects I can't get away from even if I tried, because everywhere I go now, I'm always looking at the price of things and watching inflation and how just I'm hearing more and more stories about people I keep in contact with in other countries, such as Argentina, for example, that's another issue right now. And so these type of stories, when you put them all together, it's hard to, not question and wonder, at what point will those events come to the U.S. And so, yeah, I always have things to cover.
Yeah, there's never a shortage of topics. I mean, I'm on my 9th year, so I know exactly what you're talking about. So who's your target audience? Who is it you're trying to reach with your message about, I guess, effectively a warning about fiat currencies and the future of the dollar and the world economic system?
Well, ideally, I like to focus on the Millennial Generation and younger, because I think the younger generation, we're the population that pretty much got shafted in regards to not being educated on the monetary historical aspects of what money used to be in the form of precious metals, gold and silver. And so all we know is digits for the most part and paper. And even those ideas is starting to be, wound down a little bit as far as us being transitioned into a digital economy. And so the Millennial Generation, I think, are the ones that have no clue as to what monetary as well as the financial literacy aspect of things are. So I primarily focus on them. But within the last year, I've been gearing more so towards the baby boomer generation, because I believe that generation right now is on the cusp of experiencing some difficulties moving forward because of our monetary system and how policy implementation has made it very difficult for the baby boomers to expect those promises of pensions and all the retirement products to be fulfilled. So I think I'm shifting more so to baby boomers these days, but I think education on monetary matters can go for anybody for the most part.
Yeah, I think you are correct on that score for sure. So, what is the message that you're bringing? What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, ultimately, I think as of right now, what we're witnessing for the first time in modern day history, especially, is the fact that central banking, the very concept of a centrally controlled entity, issuing the currency of a nation, whether it be the current U.S. situation with the Federal Reserve or any other nation, I think it's run its course of being of issuing reserves or creating reserves into existence from nothing and using that to prop up and to keep a system floating. We're starting to witness how that is melting apart with this whole repo action and all the other interest rate issues that's going on around the world. So we're starting to witness something of a 2008, but on a global scale again. And so since that time frame, I've had a lot of time to educate myself and learn from a lot of people such as yourself. And so definitely right now we're witnessing, I think, a transition into something unknown that I think everybody on this planet will unfortunately be impacted by.
Yeah. And you think the world's basically sleeping through this whole thing and then they're going to wake up when it's too late?
That's what it appears to be at this current moment. But yet it's with my efforts, your efforts, and a lot of other people out there, primarily in the alternative media space, I think a lot of people are doing their best to wake up people before it's too late. But unfortunately, majority of the people are asleep at the wheel. And I think that's by design, based upon the way our education system doesn't provide accurate information to get people to think critically, or majority of the working class now are so consumed with providing, for their immediate needs that they're not really considering the long-term aspects of putting currency aside and investing it or entrusting it to other people to take care of their personal financial matters for them. So I'm hoping that it's not too late, that we can still continue to get the message out there of getting people to just begin questioning things. That's the biggest thing. Question what you were told and realize that you are ultimately responsible for your own future, not someone else or some product or anything of that nature. So I don't think it's too late, but I think the clock is ticking and it's starting to speed up, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like it's speeding up. So what about the impact here of technology, not just on our jobs, but on the world, on getting these messages out? Do you think it's just a matter of getting the right meme out there when everybody one day just wakes up to this illusion of central banking?
I think technology itself definitely can help. And so have an opportunity to do podcasts, video work, as well as just the fact that everyone now has a smart device in their possession at all times. There's mediums to get the information to them, but it's more so a matter of people taking interest in it. And unfortunately, living here in the developed world, most people don't really concern themselves with issues that go beyond our borders. And so the best way, I would assume, for people to take interest is to realize that, we are, or I am, and you are as well, we're one of over 7 billion or so people. And a good portion of the population are living on less than, I think, I hear like $5 a week. And they don't have the amenities and the luxuries that we have in this country here. And so once people begin to realize that we are more interconnected than a lot of people might want to think, and that their problems in their nation, no matter how big, how small, it ultimately impacts us here as well, because we're all under the same system. So until I think we can get that narrative out there and get people to begin questioning and open up themselves to just more than their own world, then I think it'll be easier for people to grab a hold of the message and realize that, things are changing rapidly, and technology will only put them at a disadvantage if they don't utilize it for their benefit. And so just, if I don't mind, if I can, I've been studying about the artificial intelligence and machine learning and the impacts that that's going to have in this next decade. And, from watching a gentleman by the name of Kai-Fu Lee, a documentary I just came across, he was mentioning how he sees about 50% of the working force being displaced due to just the sheer nature of software being able to automate a lot of processes that will cause a lot of people to begin rethinking the whole idea of labor and how it's used these days. So technology has its advances and it also has its disadvantages. And so right now, I think we're on the cusp of trying to figure out what's best. So each person ultimately will be responsible for how they use technology, or it will unfortunately use them in a way that will be very unpleasant. So something to be concerned about, definitely.
So it's either get ready for it, prepare for it, plan for it, or get steamrolled over by it, right?
Exactly. And it can be presented as a problem. Depending on how you look at it, it can be presented as a problem or an opportunity. And so I'm trying to encourage people, especially heading into 2020. I'm of the mindset that this next decade will be a turning point in everything we do here in this country, especially because of advances in technology, as well as the shift in our monetary system towards something that, might be solely digital at some point. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunity out there for those that are aware and know how to use it to their advantage. So I think that plays into the whole rethinking aspect, or beginning to think for ourselves individually, realizing that we're the drivers of our own car and the masters of our own fate, in a sense. So I think it can be very empowering if you realize what you are capable of doing with it, or it can be very disempowering if you consider yourself waiting on other people to make decisions for you. So I think time will tell, unfortunately.
Yeah. So what's your take on digital currencies, on cryptos? You think that's the cure for all that ails us?
Great question. So I'm of the mindset, I'm not an advocate, but I'm not someone that would be considered a person that's not for, or not necessarily for it. So it's one of the things where I realize the trend. I realize that governments are positioning us to solely go digital. And so it's just a matter of what type of digital currency will the people choose to use, or the governments force us to use. So when it comes to the Bitcoin, which is original decentralized blockchain-based cryptocurrency that was about 10 years, 11 years old now, I believe it has a lot of opportunities for people to educate themselves. And if you choose to speculate in that industry, then that's something that you should be willing to realize there's risk along with that. But it does have promise, depending upon how it's used. And so the current form of it being labeled decentralized and giving people access to a different way of exchanging money or whatnot via digital, blockchain, open ledger source opportunities, it can be very empowering. But yet, once again, once it's in the hands, or if it's in the hands of those that want to use it to continue on what we've been doing already with centrally controlled currency being issued, then it could be a problem. So it's kind of a give or take, but yeah, I think ultimately governments will probably win out this race, because no one wants competition, especially if people have choice. And that's one of the biggest things I realized that governments do not want people to have is choice. They prefer to make the choice for you. So the decentralized currencies, I think, have opportunity, but yet the centralized ones, I think, will be more of the same with what we're experiencing now. So, yeah. But ultimately, I think, when it comes to wealth preservation moving forward, in my personal opinion, I'm a big metals advocate. So gold and silver, I think, are the safest way to play it, given the fact it has a long historical track record and all those characteristics of something that you can hold tangible. I think that's what we're trying to be. That's what they're shifting us away from, is the actual physical property that you can hold in your own hand or so.
And it's no secret the world's central banks, especially Russia and China, have been acquiring prodigious amounts of gold and continue to do so. Do you believe really that there's going to be a gold-backed currency when the next currency crisis emerges, which it inevitably will, and probably is happening right now before our very eyes?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
OCNO Resources is a Ross Beatty-backed gold exploration company in mining-friendly Namibia. OCNO's district-scale land package is situated near 2 producing gold mines, one of which OCNO's management team previously developed and sold to B2 Gold. OCNO's founders and management are experienced mining professionals who have already successfully developed and sold 2 companies in the past 7 years. OCNO has an excellent shareholder base, with Ross Beatty owning 20%, insiders 5%, and resource capital funds 8%. This is an exploration company with drills turning that you'll definitely want to pay attention to. OCNO trades in New York under the ticker OSIIF and in Toronto under the ticker OSI. To learn more, go to OCNOresources.com. That's OCNOresources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
So I do believe that this restructuring or reboot of the monetary system, what I like to call it, is currently underway now. And so I think it started well before the great financial crisis, because I tend to follow some charts or whatnot from a variety of commentators out there. And I noticed China and Russia beginning to accumulate gold well after the dot-com bust back in 2000 timeframe. So it's been an ongoing trend of them having plans to implement gold and I'm sure silver back into the system in some nature. Now, what that will be, I don't know. I would imagine that it's going to be a matter of, show me your weight and show me your metals, and whoever has the most weight will make the ultimate decisions when it comes to leading the way into the future. And then you factor in the Belt and Road Initiative, which I believe is going to be a major part of this next system that will be rolled out after the Federal Reserve, the reserve dollar status is either resolved or the U.S. is forced to give up some of their power and bring home some of the military troops and close some of the bases and whatnot. And so I do think gold will be a part of the equation. I would imagine they're probably going to attach it to some type of blockchain, digital currency, where you can keep the gold in that particular region and utilize the blockchain benefits to transfer back and forth to one another and then claim it at the end of the day if you want. So I can see a digitally backed gold international type of basket or something coming about possibly as a rollout to the next system. And then, like always, I think just the very concept of backing something, it puts a clamp and it prohibits governments from doing what they do best, which is expanding and growing. So I think they're going to probably, wind back the back concept and probably go to solely digital and then give that to the public. And so basically repeating the whole paper-backed system to digital aspect system that we were used to now. So but I do think gold will be a part of the equation, but not for the public directly, just the central banks and governments more than likely.
Hey, and let's not forget China bought JP Morgan Chase's headquarter building in Lower Manhattan, a building I'm very familiar with. It's literally across the street from the Federal Reserve, and it has probably the largest corporate vault, and I would venture to say perhaps private vault, but we don't really know that for sure, where vast sums of precious metal were stored and exchanged, etc. So they own that vault now. And it appears that they've picked up vaults around the world. So they've got something planned for us, something planned ahead. I don't know what it is, but certainly something's afoot. The system as it stands now, unsustainable. I mean, we didn't even talk about the debt, Mike.
Yeah, so I think the debt, 23 trillion on the book and 100 and something trillion off book will be the final nail in the Federal Reserve note coffin, because it's one of the things where it's no way of being repaid back, and so it will be addressed. And unfortunately, it will be reflected in the actual monetary units that the world holds, as far as whether it be the debt instruments that governments hold as assets, which I'm assuming they're starting to realize they're not really an asset if you're not able to get fully reimbursed, and it's interest being paid upon interest. And then you have what we all save and invest in, which happens to be more predominantly digital currency units in our bank accounts and our retirement accounts. So whenever you look on your screen, those are all typically digits, because there's not enough actual physical paper in existence to make claim to all those digits. So at some point, all those debt-based instruments have to be reconciled. And I think, as I always put, every single dollar unit or dollar bill, Federal Reserve note, will be held accountable in terms of the actual nominal price of gold and silver. And so you see a lot of blogs or whatnot referencing, gold price could be easily 10,000, 20,000 an ounce if you take into account all the units of currency in creation and all the mineable gold above ground. You factor in those numbers, I don't think there's actually a number you can put on an ounce of gold because of the worldwide problem of digitally created units of account in the form of national currency. So it's one of the things where every note will be held accountable, and they will be held accountable by tangible money itself in the form of gold and silver, in my personal opinion. So it will be addressed, unfortunately. A lot of people don't realize that if your life is entirely based upon digital illusions as well as papers, units of account, then you're going to be on the outside looking in, I think, when it comes time to get tangible goods, because I don't think they'll be buying much as this transition or reboot or whatever is going to be referred to as it picks up steam. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting day.
Yeah, it will. Hey, and what you mentioned, Federal Reserve notes, and we used to have bills, okay, and that was actually money. Federal Reserve notes are actually, a note is, under legal definition, evidence of an indebtedness, and we have a debt-based currency, and everything is based upon credit. And we've been in these situations before throughout history, and always the end result is the same. I just worry about the day that China becomes the preeminent power in the world, based on everything they do, re-education camps, organ harvesting of political enemies, all of these horrible things. It's all about the whole there. It's not about the individual. The West, going back to Rome and to ancient Greece, to Samaria, it was all about the individual. And the U.S. is the kind of the latest incarnation of a society based on individuals. Now, granted, there was slavery, there was a lot of flaws in these systems, but it was always about the individual. And when we go to a collectivist system, the individual rights, just look what's happening in Hong Kong now. So it is a real cause for concern. Time frame. When do you have any guess when this whole thing's going to unravel? This house of cards is going to collapse?
Great question there. And I have no way of pinpointing an actual date or time. I can more so refer to a season. And so I believe the transition season from what we're currently experiencing now and looking back in time, I would say that, and this is another thing that I try to, as a parent, I try to, encourage my kids to really take all this in, because I think we're living in the greatest time in human history at this current point. And so this next decade, I've been mentioning a lot on a lot of podcasts, as well as just during my live streams and whatnot, referencing that 2020 to 2030, I believe, is a strategically planned time frame or season in which all the things that, all the agendas will come to full fruition, as far as the rollout of a new monetary unit of some kind, the issuance of they're going to, and in the U.S. especially, they're going to try to roll out, as we all see, this socialistic type policies of, and as a way to resolve the issues that have been created by indebtedness, such as student loan debt, mortgage debt, and all the debt instruments out there needs to be addressed right now. So I think, redemption of free this, free that will be a trend coming up. And so socialism, a new political structure, might happen in this country pretty soon. And then we happen to have, just from an educational standpoint, as you mentioned, how things are done out in China with the concentration camps and re-education camps. I really believe that there's going to be a push on the younger generation to do more automation type things, where they'll be teaching kids watered down versions of history or removing history. And then there's going to be a crackdown on anything that would allow a person to critically think for themselves. It's going to be considered not tolerable in this next governmental structure. So more socialistic style policies on top of monetary and financial issues creates a whole new season that we have never experienced on this side of the planet. And so it's going to be an interesting decade ahead. So 2020, 2030 is my time frame of just everything being rolled out as best as they can according to their plans. But we'll see how well that works.
Hey, you talk about reconstructing history here, and what's happening with that. There's just an article today at Washington University of Virginia Law School, and the students are petitioning the administration to remove portraits of controversial figures, George Washington and Robert E. Lee. And, those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it, and those who erase history have no future.
Right. I agree. And so using history is always a good way of getting an idea of what's going to occur or what could occur, but yet everything always repeats itself. I think there's nothing new under the sun, which is a biblical reference. So there's nothing new under the sun. It's just rebranded. And so by removing and try to remove statues and portraits or whatever, that doesn't negate the fact of what happened in the past. It's going to remove the opportunity for you to learn from the past as a future is being created for you. So I think if more people were aware of the fact that they have more say-so in their own lives and that they can create somewhat their own chosen pathway, they wouldn't be so concerned with looking back in the time, pointing the finger at that movement, that person, that war. It'd be more so, what can I do now? How can I contribute? How can I add value into the world? So, but that's a part of our lack of education in the school system. And so you give children the bare minimum. What can you expect other than just basically the bare minimum of nothing at all? So yeah, it's a consequence of our lack of education in this current system we're in. So I'm not surprised at all.
And these are law students, the creme de la creme, the top.
These are next future lawyers.
Yeah, it's scary to think. And it's like, if you feel empowered, if you feel self-empowered, you don't need to blame people for stuff. You don't need to go back in history and say they did wrong. I mean, we know about historical injustices. It's not a secret, but the way to address it is self-empowerment, not erasure of historical figures and events and toppling of statues. Anyway, Mike, really appreciate your coming on. RethinkingTheDollar.com. Check out Mike's site there and check out his YouTube channel. I was just on with you recently, and Great interview. You're doing amazing work out there. We really appreciate you taking the time to come out today, and we will definitely be talking to you again soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. And you continue to do what you do. As long as you're doing your job, I'm doing my job, we're playing our part, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. Appreciate you, Kerry.